Access Fort Wayne offers reflections of our community. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne are a service of the Allen County Public Library. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting organizations. For more information about creating your own television program with Access Fort Wayne, call 421-1250.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rudy Cashman, neurosurgeon in Fort Wayne, Indiana for 42 years at age 39. This is our continuing series on Weight of the Nation about obesity and good health. And in the beginning, I'm going to repeat again what we've done in some of the other CDs to tell you 4 different ways of eating which I recommend. And you can choose. I'm not telling you what to eat. I'm just going to pass information to you, and you can do with it, what you like. Vegetarian way of eating, it's a very healthy way of eating, where you don't eat meat, but you do eat some milk products. And Seventh-day Adventists eat this way, and they're very healthy. They live longer than most of us. But they have additional things that they do, like they obey the Sabbath on Saturday. It's all family. They don't do anything else. And a very healthy way of eating. A vegan way of eating is you don't eat animal products, you don't eat meat, and you don't eat dairy products. For example, if you've advanced heart disease, you've had a couple of angioplasties, you've had heart surgery, advanced type 2 diabetes, I'd be a vegan because your life is dependent on it. And the third way is a flexitarian way of eating, which is the way I eat. I eat about 20% meat products, maybe more like 90, but 20%. I call it flexitarian. You're a little bit flexible. Some weeks I don't eat any meat, other weeks maybe a little bit more. And then the fourth way is a nutritarian way of eating. That's based on the work of Dr. Furman, my friend Dr. Furman. And he wrote a famous book, Eat to Live, a very good book to read. And it's about nutrient density. And I'll tell you what nutrients are and nutrient density is as we go along with the lecture. So what I'm trying to give you is information so you could choose which might be best for you. All these are a very healthy way of eating, but some of us get a little more problem than others. Like I'm a normal weight 145, so flexitarian works fine with me. But for another person, if you're trying to have major weight loss or you have major diseases going, a vegan or nutritarian way of eating might be better. So let's start on this journey this evening. I think we're going to have a little bit of fun here. What are the killer 10? I call them the killer 10. In this nation, we have about 70% of the people are seriously overweight. Certain ethnic and racial groups, 90%. You've heard me say it before. This is a very serious problem. And I'm trying to pass the information to you. Why did this happen? You wonder, why did this happen in the first place? We probably have the highest obesity rate almost in the world. Certainly, we're right at the very top. For one thing is, we're eating a lot of animal fat. And people don't understand that eating animal meat, frankly, is not healthy for you. It has cancer factors, growth hormone factors. It carries a great deal of saturated fat and leads to diseases. And I've heard it recently said, actually, that eating animal products, animal meat on a regular basis, fatty food products, is worse than smoking. Wow. Everybody says, how could that be? But when you think about it, I'll explain to you later the reason I give for that. Also, food is much more available to us today and much more affordable. It's become cheaper because the government supports the price of a lot of grains. So meat is a lot cheaper. So it's a lot more available. It's a lot more affordable. And because of government assistance, which is sort of shameful in a way because it's making us sick. And comfort foods would be my third reason. We use food to feel good. I do. I had a stressful day. I'll use food to make myself feel better. And so do a lot of people. And it's a quick fix. We can stop at a fast food restaurant, eat some fast food, and we'll feel better in seconds. About a half hour later, it's another story. So it has a lot to do with psychology of eating. Fourthly, I call those CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations. CAFOs, what are they? This is where they take animals and they cage them up. It could be chickens, it can be ducks, it can be lamb, but mainly we're talking about beef, where they put them in a cage, feed them on 50 days of fatty corn with petroleum products and hormones and antibiotics and fatten them up very quickly, and we're eating them. That makes food cheaper, and much more available, and unfortunately very unhealthy. The fifth reason, I think we're eating a lot of fat, salt, and sugar. And the fast food places take advantage of that. They try to develop unusual concoctions of everything is based on fat, salt, and sugar. They dress it up, very high calorie, full of fructose corn syrup, and a very unhealthy thing. Sixth, we have in us at least 100 genes, our DNA, our genetics. It's inherited through evolution, and these 100 genes try to keep us eating for everything we can get our hands on. If you eat a nutrient-dense diet, the way I'm going to teach you, that'll turn your appetite off. But when you're eating fat, salt, and sugar, your appetite doesn't go turn off, and you eat everything that's available. That's why you can't just eat one donut if a dozen is available. So our genes have a lot to do with, it's a lot easier to lose weight than to keep it off, because those 100 genes will cause us to eat everything we get our hands on when it's available. And of course, fast food, number 7, is a killer. It's so readily available, but a lot of it is food with fructose corn syrup, very fatty food, and we'll even give examples of some. And fast food has really led to a lot of obesity problem, and I like to see some slow food restaurants. I like to start a chain of slow food. And our sedentary lifestyle is number 8. Part of it's because of technologies. We're sitting at the computer, we're watching video games. We're not exercising anymore. And that results in obesity problem. Number 9 would be supersizing. Yes, a man named Wallenberg worked for McDonald's way in the days in the beginning when even the original person, the owner of McDonald's, he didn't want to supersize anything. He didn't think people could go back for a second portion, but they didn't do it. So Mr. Wallenberg sat around and watched the people in fast food restaurants for a while, and he realized that people didn't like to go back for a second time. They thought it was an act of hoarding. So he supersized food, and wow, sales went up 40%. In our drinks now, huge ounces of drinks, for example, full of sugar and fructose corn syrup, and we're supersizing our plates in our hamburgers and our cheeseburgers and in our plates, and we're overeating. We can't stop. We can't stop. Sugary drinks would be number 10. That's 50% of our weight gain or obesity is due to sugary drinks. 50%, yes, because they have in them fructose corn syrup. Fructose corn syrup is extremely sweet, and we can't seem to stop drinking, and it doesn't turn our appetite off because there's fructose in it, and fructose goes to the liver, doesn't raise the insulin level, appetite does not get turned off, and we now have these supersized drinks. We're driving down the highway drinking them, and those 10 killer reasons are really, I think, most of the reasons that America is facing this horrible obesity problem. Here's a copy up now of my food pyramid, the non-diet. I call the way I teach in books I've written 5 books on proper eating, psychology of eating. I have the food pyramid here. This food pyramid now, incidentally, this week is being placed inside Trine University in the cafeteria. I have the Boys and Girls Club. And what am I saying on here? What I'm saying is these numbers are not portions, they're nutrient density. We're talking about vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. We'll speak throughout this lecture about phytochemicals, the carotenes, the lecithins, the sulfones, things that most people haven't heard about, but it's the interaction of the vitamins, the minerals, and the phytochemicals that lead to good health. You notice at the bottom the broccoli, the kale, and the turnips, and the tomatoes, and the mushrooms, and the onions, and the fruit, and the beans as you walk up the pyramid. Nuts, for example, I think are healthy, within reason, an ounce or two a day, and 100% whole grain. You notice meats at the top. I don't recommend a lot of meat eating. It's full of fat, full of saturated fat. And remember, I'm beginning to think that eating nasty food, animal products, is worse than smoking. It may be shocking to you, but if you look at it, the death rate, I'll show you later why this is actually true. So don't make meat products the main part of your diet, because you're not going to be very healthy with just an occasional exception. So this is our food pyramid. We'll pull it up periodically. I show you here the illustration of insulin resistance because I want you to know it. You see it in my other tapes that are with this, but here's one human cell, and you can see inside of it oxygen and sugar form ATP. That's our energy molecule. Every one of our 70 trillion body cells have to have some energy to stay alive. But you notice those pink little projections out there, that's where drugs work. And you notice the yellow little substances on there, that's fat. So when we have a lot of fat in the blood, we're overweight, the fat gets caught on these receptor sites, and drugs can't work. Insulin cannot transport sugar in the cell for energy because the doors are locked by this fat. That's insulin resistance. I realize I'm repeating it, but it's critical you know what insulin resistance is. A lot of type 2 diabetics don't know it. But when I give them this illustration drawing, they understand it. And if the sugar can't get in the cell, the insulin level will increase, the pancreas responds, and the insulin level builds up in the blood, and the insulin level is destructive to our body. It paints our arteries, increases dementia, makes our brain cells sticky, causes autoimmune disease. So this illustration I want you to have in your head. I've had it in my other slides, but I want you to have it very clear. So let's give some examples of phytochemicals. Remember, I spoke about the vitamins and the minerals and the phytochemicals reacting in a symphony to lead to our good health. Some of the names I'll give you: carotenes, sulfones, quercetin. Carotenes obviously come from carrots. Lycopenes, limonoids coming from lemons. Polyphenols, phenols, flavonoids, neoxanthin, catechin, chlorogenic acid, lutein phytofluorine. These are examples. There are 25,000. They haven't all been discovered, but these chemicals repair your DNA. They run the chemistry of your body. They're very important. They're not in meat. You don't find phytochemicals in meat products, so why would you want to eat them? This is where your health is located. And let's go back many years. What kind of a diet did we used to eat years ago? We had the Neo-Paleolithic diet 100 years ago. What were people eating at that time? And what was our ancestors? What were they eating? The bone structure at that time of living things at the time had very strong bone structure. They had bone structure like world-class athletes. Today, what do we have? What do we talk about all the time? Osteoporosis. I saw a patient today had 3 fractures from osteoporosis. What did they eat at that time? They had a high intake of vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. That was the main diet. That's why they had very strong bones. If you eat a lot of meat products, the protein makes the blood acidic from meat, and that pulls in calcium to make it neutral in the blood, and you get osteoporosis. So you want to get osteoporosis, eat a lot of meat. The patient I saw today with 3 compression fractures, even at age 7, she's a big-time steak eater. So we had a little talk. I gave her information to make her understand, and I think she'll do what I ask her to do. Also, going back thousands of years is insulin, which reduces your blood sugar, glucagon, which helps produce blood sugar. This just goes back hundreds of thousands of years. That system was well worked out. And your eicosanoids, which are the intel chips of your body, that relationship was worked out thousands and thousands of years ago. And the Neo-Paleolithic diet 100,000 years ago, if they ate this way, why did they die young? Well, they had a lot of infections. We didn't have antibiotics then. And they had exposure to a lot of weather, bacteria without antibiotics. Animals ate a lot of the living things at that time. People couldn't defend themselves. There were no guns, and so they lived a short time. The average lifespan in Rome was 22 years, believe it or not. And so when was agriculture invented? About 12,000, 10,000 years ago. And at that point now, we could increase intake of energy from plants. And the cities grew bigger because of corn and oats and rice. And cities started growing bigger because there was more food available. 8,000 years ago, we started domesticating animals. We started having milk, for example, and we could eat the meat from domesticated animals. So, but it took a lot of physical effort, no machines. So the people eating significant meat products at that time and eating more grains, they were fairly healthy. It's like this Amish family I visited recently. I'd operated for a brain tumor, and I always like to learn about other cultures. So I made a house call, and there were about 50 Amish there, and I pulled the stitches, and they served me dinner. What I was eating, I felt, was very unhealthy. It was butter with salt in it. It was the potatoes were not baked potatoes with the covering in them. They were mashed potatoes. The bread was white bread, not dark bread. The pie was so sugary I could barely eat it, and the chicken was so fat it didn't taste good. But all the people around me were thin. Why? They worked hard. That's what people did in ancient times. They worked 12 hours a day, so if they even ate some nasty food, they were still healthy. But today, we're couch potatoes. We're eating nasty food, but sitting behind the TV set and getting heavy. We're not exercising. Incidentally, animals match their owners a great deal. And incidentally, if your cat's overweight, what should you feed? What should you feed your cat? The Catarian diet. Or if you have a bird that's obese, he's a perch potato. Okay, not a couch potato. We got to have a little humor here. And but animals will also get fat in the same families that are overweight. And this is occurs quite easily. Many overweight animals out there. So. Then we developed milk products from calves, led to digestive problems because our body wasn't used to it. See, there's 12,000 years of domestication of animals, and now we're farming. There was not enough time in evolution for our bodies to adjust to that. So we start getting sick. And not every one example has a lactose enzyme necessary to digest milk. It makes a lot of people ill, milk does. So we are not genetically adapted to modern food. Only the royals at the time were the only fat people. They didn't work, and they were really the overweight people. The average person was not overweight. They didn't have enough food, and they worked very hard. We're going to talk about corn a lot today because corn is really responsible for a lot of this obesity that we're seeing. And why is that? But let's go through history a little bit. It's native to Central America for over 1,000 years. It was the rise of, say, maize. That's a name, scientific name for corn. It was unknown to the European world, to the old world. 1492, Columbus brought it to Queen Isabella in Spain, and it's a success story to obesity. And I'll explain it to you. Why this occurred. Was this a brilliant thing for agriculture? And we were taught by the Indians in how to grow the corn. They taught it to us. And after they taught it us, we didn't need them anymore. We, in essence, eliminate them. And we kill them really with the bacteria and viruses we brought from Europe. But with corn and wheat and rice and oats, there was a population explosion across the world. Look at us. We're exploding because we're eating the products of corn, meat. What do they do to feed the beef and the chickens? And what are they feeding them? Corn. Iowa, the state of Iowa, is 98% corn. You don't see no fences, you don't see any animals, and you don't see any farmers. These huge corporations have bought up all this acreage and are growing corn. Then the government gives support payments to corn, which makes it cheap for the CAFOs. Remember, the concentrated animal feeding operations. where they put the animal in a cage for 150 days and feed it nothing but corn and hormones and antibiotics and some petroleum products to fatten up this cow very quickly, this beef very quickly. And in 150 days, boom, they don't let them live very long. The main reason being is they would get so sick they would die. Yes, beef cows cannot eat corn more than 150 days and they become ill. Many of them are ill by the time they slaughter them. And look at us, what it's done to us. It's due to government support of corn. If corn was more expensive, we wouldn't be able to buy cheap meat, and it would not be happening to us. The government is intimately involved with this. We even sell it across the world, and we're fattening up the rest of the world. Look at Korea. We're stationed in Korea right now. You know who's worse obesity in the United States? Korea. My friend Dr. Furman goes there and teaches the diet to South Korean physicians. Yes, he told me the story. Their type 2 diabetes rate, their obesity rate is worse than America. We defeated the communists, and the communists defeating the South Koreans with American food. It's a true story. It's not a joke. This is not a joke. As we began to grow corn in the United States, the Europeans came over here, and corn was an easy crop to rise. Bad weather, good weather, it would almost grow anywhere. General Sheridan, a general at that time and company, killed the Native Americans and the bison along with it. If they didn't, they figured they could get rid of the Indians by killing the bison, and they did, and they eliminated most Indians. But we have learned now to grow corn, and our cities grew with corn. Then we brought along some new species from Europe, though, cattle, wheat, and apples, but that didn't grow as good as corn did. And so the New World really was products that we brought along was no competition for C4. On my previous DVD, remember I talked about that corn is a very efficient, grown product, and it's called C4. And so in the biotic army of microbes that we brought with us from Europe defeated the Indians. It killed them in the thousands. It wiped them out, including the islands around us. And the Native Americans taught us corn farming, and then we didn't need them anymore. Corn is a lot in our history. Corn is 1,000 years old. It has an edge over grains because it's a very efficient plant, because remember it has a 4C carbon. It has those stomata that doesn't lose as much water through photosynthesis, takes in the light from the sun and produces sugar and oxygen, the photosynthetic process. So hot or cold, dry or wet, sandy or coarse, short or long, it could grow anywhere. Corn was a very efficient product. So how many kernels does a corn have? That's an interesting little story. About 150 to 300 kernels per year of corn. Soybean, just 50. So for energy spent, corn produces a lot more for us, make a lot more money, and is a lot more efficient. Plus, it's storable. And we use corn to pay for buying the slaves in Africa. Yeah. Then we fed it to them while they're transported across the ocean because it's a storable food product. And in the 1800s, we used it a lot to make whiskey. In the 1800s, alcoholism was a huge problem in the United States. It's a big problem now. 1800s, it was huge. Matter of fact, they took breaks at work to allow you to have a drink. Yeah. Corn was used to make whiskey. Moonshine, remember moonshine? That's corn. That's corn. And they made a lot of pork products, very fatty. In the 1800s, a lot of people were intoxicated, and we had an alcoholic nation. If you read history, people don't realize that. It's true. Husks of corn were used as toilet paper and burned for heat, so corn was very useful. The native Indians were no longer needed when the corn plant was fully understood. The greatest blessing from God ever given to man? Corn. But is it really? Corn is a capitalistic plant. The original plant it came from was called teosinte, and it still grows today in the mountains of South America. It's a very ancient plant. Let's talk about a little bit out of interest about photosynthesis. Where does the energy come from in the corn plant? For example, we use carbon dioxide. We know plants, pull in carbon dioxide through little holes in the plant called stomata. Then it combines from water from the soil a few minerals from the soil, and then it produces oxygen and sugars. That's really the energy of the fruit and of the plant. So photosynthesis, without the sun, we wouldn't certainly this wouldn't work. Let's talk about an interesting subject: corn sex. Yeah, the corn self-fertilizes. Okay, there's a male organ on top that makes about 20 million kernels of pollen on the very top. You may have seen it, and with wind and things, it flies through the air or down, and at about a meter below, 3 feet below, it hits the female part of the plant called the flowers. And the flowers each flower now makes one thread of silk, and the pollen lands on that, and each one of those becomes one kernel of corn. Remember, we have 150 to 300 genetically altered corn. We have at least 300 and some more. I just threw that out there out of interest. Industrial farming is taking over the country. The small farms are disappearing. We all know that. Iowa, for example, if you read The Omnivore's Dilemma, a very good book, where the author lived on all these farms, and so the fences have disappeared, the animals have disappeared, and the government supports the growing of corn, and they don't even care that much what the price is, because the government will make a lot of it up, and it goes to the CAFOs who feed their beef in cages. And eventually they concentrated the plants. They packed the plants in shoulder to shoulder, 30,000 plants per acre, believe it or not. And then they fertilize it with petroleum products. Yes, petroleum products. When you're eating a corn product, a lot of times you're eating gasoline. It's a petroleum product they put in there for fertilizer. They add hormones. They add antibodies. They add pesticides, insecticides are added. That's industrialized chemical farming. Not organic farming, chemical farming. The gentleman that wrote The Mad Cowboy, a very interesting book, he went to university to improve the yield in his 10,000 acres he inherited. He didn't meet a farmer at the university in Montana. Incidentally, I called Purdue University the other day and looked at their website. I could not find that they gave a course in organic farming where you don't use chemicals. Someone call me if I'm wrong, but I searched on a computer, I couldn't find it. They do teach organic gardening at IU Purdue, but it seems kind of sad that and at the university in Montana, which the Mad Cowboy went to, that wrote that book, The Mad Cowboy, he did not find a farmer at the university. Sad, very sad. What he found was chemist, and that's what you're eating. You're eating chemicals. So we now have the industrial food chain. 16 pounds of corn or wheat produce 1 pound of beef. That's a waste of energy. Let me say that again. 16 pounds of corn or wheat produce 1 pound of beef. It clearly is a waste of energy. And 100 acres will feed about 229 people, but the farmer doesn't make enough money to feed a family of 4. I talked to some Amish people. They claim they can do it, but you got to know exactly what you're doing. If in organic farming, you're going to accomplish that. They used to rotate corn and then soybeans to get the nutrients back in the soil, but now, since 1970, they don't do that anymore. Why don't they do that? Because they put on the chemicals. The chemicals, incidentally, work a lot faster than if you use compost. They work a lot quicker, and that's the reason that it's done. It's about the money. It's about the money. Our health, irrelevant. And 20 bushels, in 1920, we produced about 20 bushels of corn per acre. Corn is now planted closer together, 30,000 plants an acre. Iowa, 90% of the cornfields are gone. No fences, no animals are left. We're strictly raising corn to feed the beef and the CAFOs and the chickens and fast feed them, and then they end up on our plate. And so animals and people in the Midwest and West are gone. Triumph of corn with chemical farming, and of course the chemicals that leach out into the ground are not all absorbed, maybe 50%, 60%. Where do you think the rest goes? In your lakes and rivers, and it's in the Gulf of Mexico. 8 miles in the Gulf of Mexico, it's not even alive. Nothing lives there. because the chemicals work their way down there. Actually, farms look black from petroleum fertilization in Iowa at certain times of the year. I read that in the book. Now we use machines, little labor. Doesn't take a lot of people anymore. 2 or 3 weeks, bang, the farming is done. Work is just a matter of weeks. Farm workers are gone. Farm workers are gone. Let's talk about processed food a little bit. That's where we take off the bran and the germ, say, of a rice, and now we have white rice. What's white rice? Sugar. It's sugar. And you need to eat it with the covers on because it has fiber in it, a lot more healthy. And it has the proteins in it, the calciums in it. So processing food, of course, is seen throughout the fast food restaurants, and it makes it cheap food. Part of it, the reason it's cheap, for example, fructose corn syrup is made from corn. But the government pays for the corn, supports the corn. So the things are cheaper. So the things that are making us fat, like sugary drinks, which is 50% of obesity, is supported by your government. Yeah, they're trying to teach you to eat the right food. You know, one person of the government, and the next person signs a farm bill, and his fattening is up. Doesn't make a lot of sense to you? It doesn't to me. And so food's a lot cheaper now. Steaks are a lot cheaper. If they had the proper capitalistic price to it, it'd be more expensive. And it'd be fine if it was very healthy. The government supported it was very healthy, but it's not. The government support should be in vegetables and fruits. It should not be in corn. And food stamps and grains support. Then with the food stamps. I mean, if you look at the poverty population, I hate to admit it, but I say it, but they're much more obese even than the rest of the population. I mean, we're all obese, but they even more. There's certain ethnic groups, racial groups that are 90% morbidly obese. I know, I've seen the figure, I've been down there, I've seen it, and the same people in other countries, when they lived in other countries, that wasn't the case. It's not a racial. It's based on the evolutionary genes of the 100 genes that want to keep us overeating, and if food is readily available through cheap food, food stamps. Food stamps are great for some people. They can't afford food, but for many, they're overeating because of it, becoming obese and dying young. You know, they're paying out the money in the beginning, and at the end they probably collect it because these people die 20 years younger. I don't support that. I don't support that. I think this is not fair to them. It's almost a racial thing. And to feed them the wrong food, and then they die younger. That's what's happening. And this food is a lot more, accessible. We have a reduced workforce because of processed food. Feeding the world, and we're even feeding the world with our cheap corn products. It's not a true product based on competition. It's supported by the government. Then we sell it to Korea and different other countries in Europe and fattening up the population and ruining their health. We even support sugar. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing. That makes sugar a lot cheaper, and of course it's fattening up and killing us. Yes, we pay money to a small number of farmers for your sugar supports. That should be eliminated, absolutely eliminated, but try doing it. Try doing it. And we have a grain-fed chicken in every pot. Remember, what an animal eats is really what we're eating. If you're eating beef that's fed corn, what are you eating? You're eating corn. You're eating corn. The chicken eats corn, you're eating corn. And if they eat petroleum products, you're eating petroleum products. And believe me, we do. So 2/3 of our calories now are processed food. Because of food processing, that has reduced our vegetable and fruit consumption from 46 to 26% in about 30 years. Would you believe it? Yeah. What's processed food? Potato chips, French fries, and ketchup replace fruits and vegetables, leading to obesity. I go to certain fast food restaurants and I see parents that seemingly look intelligent buying their kids French fries and giving them cheeseburgers. If they had any idea what they're doing to their children, heart disease begins at age 4. You see that in my other tapes. I mean, it's sinful to do that to your child. It's almost child abuse to me. I mean, let's face it, it is. Are you trying to kill your child? Give them French fries and fatty hamburgers? Give me a break. So 25% of the food in supermarkets is processed corn. Yeah, there are about 45,000 items, incidentally, in the standard food market. So we have cheap subsidized corn, soy, rice, wheat. We eat 20 pounds of chicken and beef yearly. Very unhealthy. And I already talked to you about Wallenberg and McDonald's and supersizing, how you watch people come in and you realize they didn't like to go back for a second portion. They wanted it all up front. So that's the reason supersizing works. Drinks as well as portions at restaurants. Look at the portions at restaurants. I mean, it's huge things. And usually if you look at a restaurant, look around. You can match the portions pretty much with the people. I did last night. I ate out. You could see, and it was scary. It made me sad. It made me sad because I know where these people are heading to. And I know most of them had type 2 diabetic, the one table I watched. They had to be. And so bigger drink, bigger plates, super size. Our world no longer fits our bodies. They're making bigger chairs. Yankee Stadium, they'd increase the size of the chairs. At the hospital where I work, we have much larger beds, much larger cards, because of the weight of the people, 200, 300, 400 pounds. See it regularly. I see it regularly. And it's shameful, not shameful to the people, shameful for us for paying for the corn products and for not educating people. That's why I'm here tonight. I am not shooting anybody out. Believe me, my dad had a deli in New York. You think I know what good food is? No, I didn't know what it was. I finally have learned what it is, so I'm trying to share the information. You choose what you want to do, but the consequences will occur. You can choose to do or not to do, but if you choose to eat the wrong food, there will be consequences as a result of that. And that you must remember. Let me talk about chicken McNugget. This is almost unreal. It is unreal. Go to a fast food place sometime and read the printout on chicken McNuggets. It has 38 ingredients in it. 38 ingredients. They even have to add a spray to it to make sure that it tastes like chicken. Because the piece of chicken is so small and don't taste like chicken. They got to add a spray to it. 38 ingredients. Yes, read it yourself. Some people sued the fast food restaurant because of that, because they thought it was ruining their health, some young kids, and a judge threw the case out. But he said that chicken McNuggets was a hedonistic time bomb. That's what the judge said. I read it right in a book. A hedonistic time bomb. So if you're giving your kid chicken McNuggets, it's child abuse. Don't do it. Very unhealthy thing. And so all calories are not alike. That's important to remember. And people think calories in, calories out. No, because of fiber. Some foods are not absorbed because of fibers. If you eat a bean, you're not absorbed about 60%, 70% of that food because of fiber will prevent it. And that's very healthy. So fiber is your friend. Fiber is your filter. Okay? So calories in or not calories out depends on what you're eating. If you're eating the same amount of fatty meat, for example, is totally different than eating the same calories in beans, cruciferous vegetables, because you'll not absorb all that. A lot of it will go out in your stool. It'll be a lot healthier. And and I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, I'm willing to take anybody debate with it. I think the American diet is worse than smoking. Think about it. Think about it. We'll talk more about it. 16% of the people die from complications of alcohol, okay? 26% die from the complications of smoking. But 60%, 67% die from eating the American diet. You see why I say that now? See why I say that now? I'm debating cardiologists and renalists on this issue, and I'm willing to talk to anybody about it. I may not have the final answer yet, but I think I'm right about it. This is what Mr. Lehman and the Mad Cowboy says, and I tend to think he is correct. I think he's correct. And he also says, well, smoking is more addictive than eating, so it's not the same. Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Most people I talk to, and I even debated on television on one of these shows here, I think food, in the long run, because we have to eat every day, is more addictive than narcotics. A person I know, Emily Bowles, a great friend of mine who lost 100 pounds, she's in Dr. Furman's TV shows, and I use it quite a bit, counseling patients. Clearly, said she knows, she went through it. She went through it. She lost over 100 pounds. She says food is more addictive than some medications that we take. I tend to think she's right. Now we talked about empty calories. The empty calories would be meat, for example, and because they have no phytochemicals. An empty calorie has no phytochemicals, vitamins, or minerals. I want you to get that terminology straight. What about fat? Has about 9 calories per gram of fat, and protein and carbohydrate is about 4, so it's different than calories there. Saturated fat would be animal fat. Unsaturated fat would be, for example, from a bean. You have largely unsaturated fat, and beans are, full of protein. And while we're on the subject a minute, let's talk about a little bit about animal protein versus plant protein. Animal protein carries fat and cancer factors and growth factors and angiogenesis factors, all which increase the rate of cancer, while plant protein doesn't carry any of that stuff. So plant protein is a lot healthier. They break down into the same amino acids. You can have look at the hippopotamus. Look at the horse. These are vegetarians. So don't try to tell me I have to eat animal protein to have big muscles. Baloney. It is total baloney. It is not true. Monosaturated fat you would find in oils, but oils are 100% fat. So you don't want to eat a lot of oily products because you can gain weight very quickly. Incidentally, oil is absorbed into the bloodstream 3 minutes. 3 minutes. While fatty food takes about 4 hours. Okay, so oils are not a good thing. Maybe a tablespoonful of olive oil is fine. You put it on a baked potato like I do. I think it's fine instead of fat, salt and sugar. Now we talk about high fructose corn syrup. Remember, it's made from corn. Was invented in 1970 by the Japanese. It's patented. It's much sweeter. And the reason they put in Coca-Cola and Pepsi is because it's cheaper than regular sugar. And who paid for the corn? It's made out of the government. And that's 50% of our weight of our obesity problem is high fructose corn syrup. So it's doing it. Besides us taking it, the government. They're supporting the price of corn. It's total ridiculousness. And then we talk about trans fats, where we take fats and add hydrogen atoms to become trans fats. That's margarine, butter. For example, margarine is no healthier because it has trans fats in it. It's about hydrogen atoms. What's the ancient diet of the brain? Today's diet and the brain diet are a mismatch. Okay, we've had no genetic changes in our body for 150 years. For 150 years, we've had no changes in our genes, but we're eating different food. That's really the problem. So, but our food has changed. Okay, our brains are running on empty. We're running our brains on fructose corn syrup. It wants pure sugar. It's not going to work. So we need the Stone Age diet, nutrient dense. Remember the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the phytochemicals. That's out of the nutrients. Low fat, wild greens, wild game. In those years, they did have some wild game, but it had very little fat because the animals exercised a lot. So that was a lot healthier. Okay, fruits and berries. That was the ancient diet. 10,000 years ago, we talked about agriculture coming in and we domesticated the animals. And then we started eating cereals and breads and grains. So there's no evolutionary changes in our bodies to accompany that. So we become sick. And so it is with grains. Grains are, 100% grains, fairly friendly, but you can't overdo it in that because it doesn't have many phytochemicals in it. We have to be careful about the amount of grains that we eat. And Stone Age diet was fruits, berries, roots, legumes, nuts, plus some hunting for wild game. We didn't eat any grains at that time, so people were very strong. Actually, thought they lived a long time, much longer than we're living, actually. At that time, there were no domesticated animals. Now we're eating 55% new foods. And we already spoke about 16% of alcohol deaths, 26% smoking deaths, 67% because of the sad, mad, toxic American diet. So what's worse, cigarettes or our mad, sad, toxic diet? What's the Stone Age diet? Look at this beautiful picture. 65% fruit and vegetable, 35% lean game meat. It's a diet. What are we eating today? 55% processed food, 28% fatty animal meats, 10% fruit, vegetables, and legumes and nuts, and that's it. We're eating a very unhealthy diet. Let's talk about omega-3. I mean, do I want a no-fat diet? For Pete's sake, no. You need about 10, 15% of fat in your diet. You frankly could make it on 7.5, but let's say you're 15% diet. What Americans eating? 40% fat diet, okay? So meat today is full of saturated fat. The Paleolithic diet had lean meat, no fat in it. And today, I do recommend to eat fish once or twice a week, you know, if you're in pretty good shape. If you have advanced heart disease, diabetes, multiple heart attacks, I'd stay away from fish because fish is full of fat too. The mad cowboy layman would say, because he used to weigh 300 pounds and got down to 160, he would say all meat, I don't care it's beef, I don't care it's pork, I don't care it's fish, I don't care lamb or what it is, it all has 90 to 100 milligrams of cholesterol in it if you eat about 3.5 grams. So all meat products have fat in them, including fish. But there's omega-3, which has to do with your eicosanoids. Remember the Intel chips over your body that was the ancient communication system in your body. You didn't have blood vessels in the ancient living things, and they had this eicosanoid conduction system. And the membranes of that are made of omega-3, which are anti-inflammatory. Omega-6 are pro-inflammatory. So that's very important. And we need the proper potassium and sodium in our diet. We need more potassium than sodium in our diet. So chemicals have to be kept in mind. Our brain, what's it made from? About 60% fat. So respect that. You're riding a motorcycle, you have no helmet, you get 3 pounds of fat sitting up there, and you're going to get in an accident like I saw again last night without a helmet. That's 3 pounds of fat this gentleman has. It's not doing very well. It was sort of running out of an incision, actually. So we must protect our brain, number one, but we must protect it with good food. So the type of fat determines actually which neurotransmitters, which are the proteins that jump from one cell to the next cell to send a message across. Those are called neurotransmitters. Acetylcholine, adrenaline, for example, are neurotransmitters. But the type of fat we eat determines the number of neurotransmitters we have. So that affects brain function. You eat a very fat diet, your brain doesn't work as good. Your brain doesn't work as good. So the type of fat determines how many of these neurotransmitters are made and released. Cell membranes may stiffen or shrink with bad fats. Your brain cell may shrink or stiffen with bad fats. Your projections from your nerves, the dendrites, which receive the message. The axon sends a message, the dendrite receives the message from the neurotransmitter, but the dendrites that receive the message, dendrites tend to die off when there's a lot of fat. They tend to shrivel, a lot of fat in your body and in the brain. So neurotransmitters and neurotransmission may decrease with bad fats. So if you're eating a very fatty diet, you have increased rate of dementia, increased loss of memory, increased rate of strokes. So bad fats can produce inflammation of the neurons. It can cause insulin resistance in the neurons, so nothing works as good. So, and that's the reason type 2 diabetics who have a lot of fat in their blood tend to get dementia at a young age. And just a quick word on Alzheimer's disease. I'm not too sure that thing is as common as we make it. I think it's just dementia and memory loss, and the reason being I see that 4 huge pharmaceutical companies reported last month all the research they were doing on new drugs because Aricept wasn't working. None of their drugs worked. So I think I've been right all along. It's dementia. That Alzheimer's disease is a very rare thing. And that's good news. What I'm saying is you eat the right diet, don't eat many fatty products, don't eat animal products, you're going to have better memory, you're going to be sharp till you're 100. Alzheimer's disease is a very uncommon thing, and I think I've been right about that. I wrote a book on that called The Fraud of Alzheimer's Disease. I think I'm right because all these companies are reporting now none of the drugs are working. They don't work because of the process of aging. It's not a disease. And a very interesting point here. So bad fats can cause insulin resistance that affects neural cells, saturated fat stunts, neuroplasticity. You can grow some brain cells every day. We do. Every day we make some brain cells. We can kill some off with alcohol or head injuries, but we can grow some every day. That's been proven. And saturated fat stunts neuroplasticity, the growing of brain cells. So learning is impaired with saturated fats. Memory decreases with saturated fats. You get the picture? Eating animal products affects your memory, your brain, dementia. Very important point for you to get straight. So fat changes the morphology of the brain cells. So processed oil is a brain buster. Processed oils are a brain buster. Fructose corn syrup, when you take these drinks, goes straight, as fructose goes to the liver, it does not go to the bloodstream, and is quickly converted to LDL, the bad cholesterol, lousy cholesterol, and deposited as fat. You don't use up the fructose corn syrup thing as energy very easily because it causes no insulin response and your appetite doesn't turn off, and that's the reason that you can not stop at one donut. The insulin is not turning your appetite off. You will eat the whole dozen donuts. Hell, we've all done it. We've all done it. And so you have to keep that in mind, and that's because the fructose corn syrup goes to the liver, is changed to LDL very quickly and deposited as fat. Very interesting point. And so several million years ago, our brain weighed about a pound, but gradually it grew to 3 pounds. Okay, because no omega-3 was available. Okay, and the last 1 million years we were living near freshwater lakes. We started eating fish, and our brain started growing. And so we had expanding brain capacity. We now eat less omega-3, and less omega-3 is leading to mental disease, poor memory, dyslexia, low intelligence, ADHD, learning disability, because we're not eating right. So for mothers to feed their children a proper diet is a very, very important thing. And omega-3, remember the good fat, repairs free radicals, less cancer, less disease, improves immunity, decreases inflammation, and also it's found in the neural membranes throughout your body. Omega-6 is the opposite one. That's the inflammatory one. It's an incendiary byproduct of toxic eicosanoids. They make the prostaglandins, the leukotrienes, the cytokines, the nasty chemicals that cause inflammation, heart disease, vascular disease, and dementia. What about supplements? What kind of supplements should you use? ALA, DHA, you can go to health food store or any big supermarket, they'll have it too. Take a supplement every day. I do about 1,000 milligrams of ALA and DHA. Maybe take some omega-3, some flax seeds, make it in a smoothie out of those beautiful plants you see to the right. That improves neuroplasticity, will cause brain cell growth. We grow new brain cells daily with good nutrition and a nutrient-dense diet. A very important thing for you to know. So DHA is a king of the brain fats. 1/2 of brain cell membranes are made from DHA, so take it as a supplement. You also can get it in fish oil and flax seeds. It increases acetylcholine, which affects your memory. In Japan, many foods are fortified with DHA. They fortified it. They really think it's important. Fructose is metabolized by the liver. We spoke about that already. And it causes no increase in serum insulin. It doesn't turn your appetite off. I think a pretty important thing, for you to remember. Fructose is very cheap and sweet. Remember, the government supports it. The government supports it. Invented by the Japanese around 1970 and patented. They own the patent for it. It's very cheap because of government corn support. HFCS is very sweet and increases cholesterol. We are drinking a lot of calories. Ancestors drank breast milk and water. Calories in soft drinks don't decrease the appetite. Even non-diet drinks don't help much because, like aspartame and these different chemicals are sweet, and they increase our appetite, and we eat more sugary products. And so even with non-diet drinks, we gain weight. Drink water, a little lemon juice, some other drink, but they don't work very well. Feed me, okay? Leptin is what turns appetite off. You eat a lot, fat secretes leptin, goes to the hypothalamus, should turn your appetite off. But some people develop leptin resistance because they're eating all the time. It doesn't work very well. Ghrelin is made by your stomach that makes you eat, and that's why some people have bypass in the abdomen, for example. They eliminate half the stomach, you don't make much ghrelin, and your appetite goes down. Just a couple of little things for you to know. So let's talk about milk a minute. Every mammal makes milk that fits their infant, okay? No mammal drinks the milk of another mammal except humans. Except humans. So why do we drink the milk of another mammal? We should drink mother's milk at age 2 because of good protein and because of good antibiotics, and you're less likely to get obese, have a better memory, a bigger brain. So drinking mother's milk is very good, but to drink human milk from cows after age 2 is not necessary. You get much higher increase of type 1 diabetes, much more allergies, much more asthma, much more infection. Dr. Furman, in his book about children, mentions that a great deal. So to feed milk to a child is not necessary and can be quite harmful. Your child has a lot of infection, get rid of the milk. Has a lot of allergies, get rid of the milk. Breast milk is the healthiest for 2 years. Decreased breastfeeding leads to obesity and diabetes. Milk is liquid fat. That's a good one. I heard Dr. Willow say it. I think he's right. Milk is liquid fat. Just think about that. Just think about that. Why would you want to bother with it? Addiction in food, which is more addictive. We spoke about that through isotope studies. The brain lights up when we're eating through isotope studies. It's about dopamine, serotonin, and dynorphin. Fast food, 25% of people visit fast food places daily. It's about fat, salt, and sugar. I like to start Rudy's slow food chain. Burger King's pizza burger is 2,530 calories. So in this last few DVDs I've gone through, let's summarize things a little bit. And I want you to fully understand, it's your choice. I'm not telling you how to eat. I just want you to be informed, though, about what's going on. I want you to eat less animal products. I think it's a good start. If you have trouble doing that, just think of what they do to the animals. Yeah, and I've, I think, explained that to you today quite a bit. I mean, they put them in cages, feed them, and they kill them, and a lot of them are unhealthy. And if you have a child, can't change their diet, do that like I did today in the office today. I wanted a child, because the cholesterol was sky high, to stop eating so much steak. And I told him about these stories, and I think he is willing to change. I'm sorry, but I'm telling you what's occurring. You choose, but remember, there are consequences of your choices. You must remember that. But the beauty is, what I'm teaching is 4 different ways of eating, and you pick and choose which ones that you like. I'm passing on information to you because in the office, what I see every day is people becoming sicker and sicker, and I don't want that to happen to you. I really appreciate very much you listening to me with an open mind. You're welcome to email me, write me, or even send me a book, and I'll read it and sit down to breakfast with you at Starbucks and discuss it with you, because this is a very important subject to me. And as a neurosurgeon, and now having really learned a lot about good health habits, you can call me Dr. Wellness. You can call me Dr. Second Opinion. But my knowledge base really has expanded a great deal because of that. And we'll be adding another DVD to this next week. You can see us on Public Access TV, our TV shows, and obtain our DVDs through Amazon or at the Lutheran Hospital bookstore, for example, to inform yourself. It's information. I'm trying to teach you. I'm a teacher. Through DVDs, books, many diet books that I have, and many DVDs that I have, then you can decide yourself. I'm not telling you how to eat. Our food pyramid, incidentally, is at Trine University. On the wall, it's going to be on their tables, and I'm heading for other university, trying to change the way we eat, make you a lot healthier, happier. And I want you to live to be 100 and be of sound mind. If you eat this way, I think you can indeed accomplish this. Thank you very much for watching. I love you all. Namaste. We'll see you next time.